gold, gray, black. Start in the middle and we fight in the middle. It's inevitable, we are in the ghetto, certainly readily evident. The soul is a rubble. Click, clack, blast, get back fast. Who's really thinking that we free at last? Thinking it's a minute of a society. The better controlling our business so to get that cash. IMF, World Bank, the same motherfuckers in the same gang. North to the south, to the east, to the west. Africa's time to get up.
Oh yeah. In Ghana, you know, that was, for me, that is the basis of everything. Without Accra City, without my time spent at Achimota, like, I'm not Blitz the Ambassador. I'm not this artist. I'm not, you know, I don't have the sound that you know, I've been so lucky to have. It all begun with, you know, the high lives and the Afro beats and the, you know, the juju music. I mean, some of it came mad early from Nigeria. Some of it was local in Accra. You know what I mean? So like that hybrid, but that was my soundtrack growing up. And then, you know, comes like hip hop in the late 80s, early 90s. And what that starts to translate is young people who look just like me, who found a voice in which they can be assertive. They can say, listen, here's how society looks at us, here's how we look at society. Some of it was rude, some of it was straight, you know, straight disrespectful, some of it was vulgar, some of it was spiritual, some of it was cultural. But at the end of the day, you know, we really had a fantastic mix of hip hop. And then for me, my conversation was always, how can I, as an African-born black person, knowing the trajectory in which hip hop has traveled, right? Say, how can I be that answer? How can I be that echo? You know, but bringing it from my perspective. So if you look at, I mean, even how hip hop flourishes in the Bronx, it comes from Caribbean import, the Hercs, coming from Jamaica, sound system culture becomes hip hop culture,
crazy.
Right? And then, you know, now it comes back to here. So I feel like this conversation has been an ongoing one, and Africans find themselves at a spot now where we don't, it's just not a soliloquy, now it's a dialogue. We can be like, it comes to us, we can talk back.
Right.
So it's been beautiful to see those connections, me shouting out Accra City, me shouting out Lagos, and that is right on Hot 97 with the next, with someone shouting out Atlanta or Brooklyn. I think that black people globally have become so aware of each other's spaces. And I think that we could do more though, like to bring you closer and to say, all right, you stand on this media monopoly, but over here, we also got something to say. And as an artist, I think that we cannot underestimate any of the channels that we have available to us. We must fire on all cylinders. Be like on the style, on the sound, on the visual, on the narrative, you know, on the lyrics, on the beats. Like, you don't have a choice on everything, right? And so, yeah, for me, the visual elements, and I'm fortunate, I came from, you know, the visual arts background. You know, I painted as a kid, won a bunch of awards doing that. So, like, I always knew that somehow my visual aesthetic, you know, but it has also helped a lot in terms of branding and in terms of messaging, because you also gotta understand, Africa is still a very undiscovered and unknown place. It's so sad in 2016 we even have this conversation about just how visually unrepresented Africa is, right? And so a lot of what we're doing is doing it all at once. We're saying, here's the sound, but here's the look as well.
Right.
Here's the things you need to, here's the history, here's the future.
All in one, yeah.
You know, so in each release, like, you know, the responsibility that artists like myself have is enormous. You gotta educate while you still gotta stay fly though. You gotta be ancient, but you still gotta be current. Like, it's all it is, you know. But I think it is loaded. It is a lot of work. People don't understand, especially for the few of us who chose this pioneering approach to it. You know, it has not been easy. But I also believe that responsibility is what has made it possible for artists on the continent now to bum rush. And, like, you know, because a lot of groundwork was laid globally. And way before I showed up, the Angeliques were doing it. They had the style, sound down pat. Before the Nubians were doing it, right? So, like, I come through in that in that
thread,
you know,
that
part of
vessel.
that vessel, and I'm just here to add to that and make sure that I'm representing my piece in a way in which when we curate what has happened, my work will be an instrumental piece in how the balance was, you know, shifted. I think space is critical. As African people, we haven't had much of it. Whether public space, public programming, things that allow different subsets of our society to interact. We're not used to that. So that level of claiming space, I feel, is one of the most revolutionary things we can do as young African people. And I think that out of that space is gonna come institutions and idea sharing and all these things that we desperately need. So I think Ghana is in the forefront, but I think that we gotta return home. Like and those who are out and those who are out, you know, there are people on the ground who are not home either, right? So let's not forget, just because your body there don't mean your mind there. So I really think that it takes a lot of inspiration for people to say, listen, the same energy I got, where do I put it? Right? Some of us have had the privilege to travel the world and give good messages, and we're grateful for that. But we know that in terms of our real work lies on the continent. Because just off the fact that it's the most deprived space, it's the most underappreciated space, I think that's the only wise place to put your time and your effort. Until we're of a level where, you know, we don't have to still explain that we have buildings in Africa. You know, but to ourselves too, like we have a self-esteem where we can say, I know my history because it's beautiful, it's in cinema, it's in art, it's in literature, it's in all these things, you know.
You're aware.
I'm aware of it, right? So yeah, I think Ghana is being very inspirational, for me at least now.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Filmmaking for me has been a real blessing, you know. As an artist, you're always looking for how do you connect, but also how do you connect en masse? You know, we don't have enough time to be taking it one person at a time. Music's good, but music is also so genre driven that people might not even give you a chance because, you know, like my mom won't listen to my music like that. You know, she'll appreciate it because I'm her son, but she ain't bumping it to her friends. However, a film, she'll call her friends to sit down and watch. You know, so it's a different medium, and I think that if you look at how cinema, just in general, has really shaped our minds, I look at that. I'll give you an example. When I was young, one of the ways we consumed cinema was through these evangelical mobile cinemas. They'll come to a soccer field and they'll show like the Jesus movie, right? And it's crazy. Like it was like an event. They'll come early in the day with a bullhorn and like they'll announce call out, and then at like 6 o'clock, people start camping out, setting up their little colonies with their mats, right? And then we'll sit down and we'll watch the Jesus movies. Moses, that's why I first saw the Moses movie where he splits the sea and all that. Ten Commandments, that's where I first saw it. And it's so funny. Up till today, when I think about what Jesus looks like in my mind, it's not even like the Michelangelo version. It's that C-rated, B-rated actor who is playing Jesus, right? And that's how powerful the medium is. It stays with you for the rest of your life. You understand? So I've gotten to a place where I realize if that's the level of impact that visuals can have on me, then what happens to everybody else, right? And what happens when we start getting images, visuals, let's say that this is who we are. Here's a correct telling of our stories. Here are the epics. Here are the family dramas. But everything is shot with a level of reverence and beauty. Even if the circumstances are ugly, the visual will never be ugly. You know what I mean? And that takes real intention and investment. And I think that filmmaking has granted me that great opportunity to start getting a wider audience who may not necessarily be there for a specific genre of music.
Exactly.
You know, they're there because, and
everyone interprets it. So just you make it yours.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's the power of that.
It's powerful. So I mean, making the short film Diasporadical Trilogy was a complete labor of love. I shot in Accra, I shot in Brooklyn, I shot in Bahia. All of those were unbelievable experiences, a lot of enlightenment for myself, a lot of growth, but also like a lot of getting into this space in which I'm trying to be part of a new canon of African storytellers, or African storytelling, where being African is central to the way the story is told. Sadly, as African people, we're always, we're following the lead of whatever we think the industry standard is. So, this is how literature is supposed to be written, so let's write our books like that. This is how films are shot, and these are how stories are told in cinema. 3-act stories, okay, so let's write out. But then when you think about the opportunity that we have as African people and the way that, how non-linear and how complex our storytellings are, right? I think that we haven't really tapped into that much. We've done that a lot in music, we've done that a lot in other mediums, but we haven't done that in cinema yet. And I truly believe it's because it's a fairly new medium and we're just getting access to it. At some point,
it was always expensive.
It was cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
You just couldn't get down, And now, my man here's got an iPhone that can do magic. You see what I mean? And so you think about that and you're like, okay, this is gonna open a floodgate of creativity. And I think that it's on us, for some of us, to say that, let's start laying down let's start taking some chances and telling some stories and telling them in a completely unique way that we will tell our stories. And let's see what happens.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying everybody has to tell these non-linear, crazy, whatever, right? You can keep doing what's standard and what you think will win. But I think that as African people, again, because who we are has been such a suppressed part of the global narrative of human evolution. If you look at the books, we're constantly left out, right? There's reasons, we know the reasons. So for me, it's like any work that I do has to be about the inclusion, not the exclusion of the African way of doing things. So it's in the writing, it's in the acting, it's in the camera. Where the camera will be is different from where the camera should be for a European, because perspective is different. And we need to start tapping into perspective as African storytellers in general, right? Not just in literary work or in film work or in music, but perspective is critical. And we rob the world of the opportunity for the African narrative to be a part of the global narrative when we don't do that. When we just copy whatever is being done and say, okay, here's our contribution. Well, that's not,
there's no identity.
There's no, you know what I mean? You just copy, you're good copy, right? But that's it. And so that's, I'm far from there, but that's my journey. My journey is where can I eventually get to as an artist in which this perspective is very unique and very African and very me. And whether it's commercially successful or not is inconsequential. It doesn't matter. The fact that it's a contribution and it may not be appreciated in my lifetime, but who knows, my son's lifetime, right? Or his son's lifetime, or his daughter's lifetime. It'd be something else that people would say, yo, because this cat did this work is possible.
Tell me what you're working on at the moment. I know you did this film. I don't know if it's too early to talk about that.
No, it's in the process. I've spent a lot of time in Lagos writing because the script wasn't done when I left Ghana, but I have to return with a full script.
So you're writing on this script?
I've done. I just finished the first draft 2 days ago, so I'll be doing a bunch of revising on my flight back. But the story it's called The Burial of Kojo Kumsin, and it's about this guy who gets trapped in a mine. And we do a lot of illegal mining in Ghana, and what happens to him, his mind while he's down there, his family's searching for him, and it's this very intriguing story that I've wanted to tell a lot. I don't necessarily, I'm not one who's like, okay, what's the issue story? But I think that, if you're drawn to a specific thing, I think you need to invest in telling that story. And I think that the level of exploitation that's on the continent is vast, and that has been our one Achilles heel. Is that everybody comes and takes. So right now, our challenge now is dealing with the Chinese invasion, and they've set up major camps in these mining spaces, terrorizing the locals and just taking no permits, right? And so that kind of the story revolves around that as well. And I think that artistically, it's going to be one of my most challenging. It's a feature, so in of itself, It's nothing like anything I've ever done, but it's also a good opportunity to put my storytelling to test and, you know, work with some of the great people I've worked with in the past, bring some of them in, collaborate on telling this story. And I hope, like, you know, the world will get to see a beautiful side of such a tragedy. And, you know, and I think people care more when it's beautiful but still tragic, and they're like, yo, there's something that can be done about this. I feel like if it's not done beautifully, then it's just you know, here's their problem. There you go. Take that. You know, we want people to engage in ways that are positive, in ways that drive change. And I think that, you know, filmmaking is critical to that. In you know, getting to people's heads and telling them there's something you can do about this. You know, so
crazy good shit.
Thank you. What up? This is Blitz the Ambassador, live right here in Lagos, Nigeria. And you are watching Globetrotter TV. Salute.